party. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Well, welcome along. Thanks a lot for taking Indiana Sports Beat along for the ride. Wherever you're going, wherever you're headed, we appreciate you taking Indiana Sports Beat along. Jim Boyle with you as always. Jake's at the wheel, keeping things on the track course. Coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hope your midway point of the week is up to a good place and we can keep it headed in the right direction. On the program today, Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers, IU beat writer. Also, IU beat writer Stu Jackson from Rivals as the Nike EYBL Peach Jam gets started today down in North Augusta, South Carolina. Of course, we have the Adidas Gauntlet starting tomorrow, but all that stuff is getting underway. A lot of action. Last night, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. The ESPYs are tonight. Summer League action, NBA Summer League action going on as well to talk about. We're going to be meeting with some players today from IU football as well as the meet and greet with freshmen continues. Ivory winners, Matthew Bedford amongst those that we'll be talking to later today. We won't have that on the program. I'll have that for you tomorrow, but stuff we'll be getting to do. The new rankings out for the 2021 class. Talk about that. 3 Indiana kids in the top 36. We've talked about that unbelievably strong 2021 class. Well, there's why. 3 guys in the top 36. That ain't bad. Because we're talking about the entire United States. A little bitty Indiana, so a pretty good deal for them. Hope your day is off to a great start. Hope your week's going well. Next week, we've talked about the Indiana football. We'll head to Chicago. We'll be there as well for Big Ten Media Days. We're getting close to football, folks. As hard as it is to believe. We're getting there. This summer's kind of flying. We're not quite into mid-July, but man, what happened to spring? We're deep into July already. Talk about time just flying by. Yesterday, in NBA Summer League action, Juwan Morgan in action with the Utah Jazz as they knock off Portland 97-93. J-Mo's probably his best game that I've seen so far. I didn't get to watch all of it, but I was able to watch some of the action. He played 17 minutes, definitely his biggest output. He had 7 points on 3 of 5 shooting. He was 1 of 3 from behind the line, the arc. That may be the first three-pointer that I've seen that he's hit. I'm not sure. I could have missed one, but to my knowledge, that's his best offensive output that he's had, as he's hopefully getting a little more acclimated to that level. The Summer League runs through the 15th. Taco Fall has been a sensation, man. I remember getting to meet with him when he was in for workouts with the Pacers when Juwan was there. Taco's playing for Boston, however. He was not drafted. Big dude. He's been kind of a sensation. Didn't have a great output yesterday. 4 points in 17 minutes. Couple of rebounds. Not a big day for him, but man, it's incredible. If you haven't watched any of that, you should. And just to watch him, because he is, you've seen over the years the guys, Yao Ming and the guys that just tower, Mutombo, they just tower over people. He's like that, but he may be one of the more athletic ones. Now, Yao Ming was pretty daggone good. He was, of course, he was older because he came from China, but and much more physically imposing. But Taco Fall's pretty athletic for a 7'6" guy. That's a foot and a half. I'm 6'1", and he's a foot and a half taller than me. That's nuts. That's so crazy. But you can catch that Summer League action, like I said, until the 15th. They're out in Las Vegas playing. Speaking of the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas, we'll be talking with our good friend Scott Agnes tomorrow. He is in Las Vegas for the NBA Summer League, checking that out. And so we'll get a full up to the minute report from Scott on how things are going out there for any of the Indiana guys. Last night, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. The American League, once again, takes it with a 4-3 win. They are in Cleveland. The MVP was Justin Bieber. No kidding. It was Shane Bieber, pitcher. They didn't really have an MVP. They kind of just meted that one out, I assume. Hey, well, also today we're going to be fortunate to be meeting with Ivory Winters and Matthew Bedford and a couple of the other of the IU freshman football players. We'll have that for you as we go forward, but looking forward to that. Ivory Winters is one of the vaunted members of that running backs room. Looking forward to seeing how those guys perform this year, but I keep saying as we get closer and closer to football season, the kickoff, which is August 31st at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Indiana will be taking on Ball State to kick off the season. It's not that far away. I just talked about how summer's flying. We're already, into July. It's nuts. The season starts next month. We can literally say that because it's true. It's on the August 31st. So football season starts next month. That's crazy. Crazy that it can make that statement, and it's absolutely true. Wow. But before we get to that, we've got a lot of basketball coming up starting today with a Nike Peach Jam down in North Augusta, South Carolina. That will run from today through the 14th. Then the Adidas Gauntlet deal starts in Birmingham tomorrow. On the show tomorrow, looking forward to that. We'll have Scott Agnes, like I said, with a report from the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. Zach Osterman from Indianapolis Star will be with us from Birmingham. So we're going to where the action is for you, folks. We're bringing it to you. Looking forward to that. Then on Friday, Todd Leary, of course, is always with us. Ken Bikeoff will be with us. But I'm also probably going to be talking with John Sauber from Rivals, who is in Birmingham as well. So we'll get a report from there. So reports from all over for you this week to keep you in tune with what's going on. Looking forward to that very much so. Hey, the latest rankings for the 2021 class came out. Christian Landers, the top-rated kid from Indiana, he dropped 4 spots. And I don't know how this happens. I really don't. They base it on these weekend series, I guess. If you have a bad weekend, you go up, you go down. Man, I just think that's a little silly But anyway, Christian Lander he's number 18 still. So he's in the top 20. Trey Kaufman from Silver Creek. He jumps up 35 spots. 35. That's a that's an atmospheric jump. He's now sitting in the number 31 spot. And then Caleb First, he's number 36. So you got 3 kids from Indiana in that 2021 class in the top 36 in the country. We've talked about how big that class is going to be, how important that class is going to be. Well, here's why. There's no other state the size of Indiana that has 3 kids in the top 36. That I can guarantee you. But man, the talent, and that's just those guys we're talking about. I didn't even go further down. I mean, it could have went, but what a big time class that's going to be. It's going to be very important, Indiana, because I say it all the time. If you could just recruit Indiana, at worst, you're going to be okay. And if you can add some pretty good talent outside of that, which has been what they have not been able to do, then you're going to be pretty good. That's where Indiana has to get to. They've got to lock these guys down. I mean, can you imagine getting Christian Lander, Trey Kaufman, and Caleb First? That'd be a pretty damn good recruiting class for Indiana. Now, if you add something from outside, which is probably, hopefully, what whoever the next assistant coach that Archie hires will be their main focus. Indiana has not fared very well outside of the state here of late. So we'll see who that's going to be, who gets tabbed for that. A lot of these big events are going on right now that we're talking about, the EYBL Peach Jam and the Adidas. All these guys out there playing, and Indiana's down a man. So, I don't know how much it hurts why they're all gathered here, because they're all there, and you can get your guys to these two big-time locations easily. But it still would be – it's about having those connections, the relationships. And who they get can change the course immediately, because that guy's probably already has relationships with certain kids. Now, I know you have to be careful with whoever they're working for at the moment and that they're recruiting for. There's generally a gentleman's agreement. You kind of lay off them, but a lot of times it doesn't matter, because they develop that bond in that relationship, and that relationship will follow them. So the recruiting for Indiana can change really quickly depending on whom that hire turns out to be. It'd be interesting to see. But all that starts right now, today, down in North Augusta, Georgia, for the Peach Jam. Tomorrow the Adidas deal starts. But a lot of people sitting on pins wondering who that coach is going to be, because there's been nothing coming. You're not going to really hear anything until it happens. This is a deal that, because of the time, what's going on, I think it's a lot easier to keep things under wraps. So there's just not going to be a lot of information until it happens. There's been a lot of guys that have put some lists out and some great viable candidates on there, but I'm not sure how close they actually are, because again, it's guesswork. There's some guys that would seem like they would be a good fit. Guys I've talked about, Pat Holmes and Lala Muir. But it may not be what Archie is looking for specifically, and that's all that matters. He's going to hire whom he thinks is going to do the best job for him and the program, that he how he sees it. And until that information comes out, I just don't think we're going to know. It could end up being one of the guys that we've talked about, because we've kind of both Mike Schumann and Kevin Brockway both came out with a couple of lists, but those are all just based on common sense, looking at the couple of guys or one guy that's worked for him. Like I said, you've got Pat Holmes, you've got there's a high school coach in Indiana, but I don't think that Indiana's not having a problem with in-state kids, really. They did lose Keon Brooks, but that was a separate deal. I truly believe. It's outside of the borders where Indiana is not faring well right now. But a big part of that is because these kids today, they've never seen Indiana be good. Now, there was a blip in, of course, 2013, but that's it. So they have not grown up seeing Indiana as the Indiana that most of us know them to be. And that's what they base it on. And if you're not from the state, if you're not from the area, then those memories aren't there for you, and they don't care. So it's a little bit more of a difficult job than it used to be. Even in the midst of when Tom Crean was early on and trying to revamp the program after being decimated from the Kelvin Sampson debacle, Indiana still carried a little bit of weight, but that's kind of gone away, these kids. Think about it. They're 17 years old. Go back 17 years. Not a lot has happened. Other than a couple of coaching changes. They've not made the NCAA for the last couple of years. So that stands out to these guys. And until they need to get a guy that can convince these kids that, hey, you can be a part of that not being that way. But there's no doubt. I think that's going to happen, like I said, relatively easy. If you get the right hire, Indiana's recruiting fortunes can turn on a dime quickly to the positive. We'll certainly see how that works out. Hey, we've got a lot coming up on the program today. Like I said, Kevin Brockway, IU beat writer from CNHI Papers, is going to join us. We're also going to talk with Stu Jackson from Indiana Rivals. get caught up on who's where, who's playing where coming up in the next few days. And we'll talk about these 2021 guys that I've talked about as well. Stay tuned. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, you want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, Indiana Sports Beat. Jim Coyle with you as always. Joined now by Kyle Nedrup in Indianapolis Star. Kyle, how are you, sir?
Hey, good. How you doing, Jim?
Good, man. Great piece yesterday on the transfers in high school. And it's funny because our good friend Ken Bykoff, he always says, nothing new ever happens. And you pointed out with a great story from the turn of the century, how this has been going on forever. But it's becoming a little bit more prevalent now with a rule change. I didn't recall that they made that change where you could go any place you wanted.
Yeah, I mean it's open enrollment ever since they capped the property taxes back in what was it, 2009, I guess, 2010. And some schools, there are certain schools where they only accept kids from within their own district, and some schools are capped and they can't take any more students basically. But hey, if you're good enough at basketball, they'll probably find a way to let you in, or good enough at athletics. There's usually a way to make that happen. So it's an interesting thing. I don't have a problem with people transferring. I don't think it's I think people need to decide where they want to be regardless of the reasons why. It just seems to be more rampant as far as kind of, at least from what I heard and kind of from what I've seen, just more brazen recruitment is going on now, and I just find that interesting, I guess.
Is it, and I hate to use this comparison, but we look at the NBA right now and you see a lot of these guys who are kind of trying to create their own teams on where they want to play. And this guy, I want to play with this guy, and let's create this team. Let's go to LA. And it's kind of similar to that in a way. Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of that. And again, I don't necessarily prefer that style of, even in NBA. I think it's more fun that, teams are kind of created organically a little bit more, and you may add a free agent piece here, or you think back to like the Lakers of the 80s, or the Pistons, or stuff like that, where you might add free agent pieces, but it's mostly done through the draft, and kind of happens organically, and you may add a key piece here and there with the trade or whatever, but I think it's become more obvious now here lately that guys are getting together and say, hey, let's play together. And again, it's fun. I mean, the free agency period in the NBA is an absolute blast. But it kind of struck me when, there's a high school coach who basically was like, it was Ron Moore from Cardinal Ritter. He's like, in high school free agency is only second to NBA free agency. And it's really, it's interesting. There's so many kids who are in different systems up through middle school who end up elsewhere. And there's reasons for that, and some are like I said, it's just in this state you have to decide before you get to your freshman year, otherwise you kind of put it in the hands of the IHSA or the schools that's signing off on you, because if they deem you've transferred for athletic reasons, you have to sit out a full year, or you're just playing JV, or you're totally ineligible. So if you transfer before then, and if it's not deemed to be undue influence or recruiting reasons, then you can kind of go wherever before your high school career starts. So right now you see a lot of kids basically getting picked off at the middle school age and getting recruited to different places. And it's been happening. It's not like this is totally what I wrote is not totally brand new. It's been happening forever. But I think it's just more accepted maybe. And my phone was blowing up yesterday from texts and email, calls and emails, and from coaches and a lot of them who agree. And it's kind of been a thing where it's kind of happened over time, I think, where it's just become more accepted, I guess. And, it's just something that's happened naturally to try to accumulate talent as much as possible.
Yeah, and you can even look at the NCAA and their recent, they have the, I call it the trade portal, but the transfer portal that became in vogue all of a sudden, and guys going everywhere. And it became such a big deal that the NCAA had to step in. Now they've made it more difficult for these instant transfers or to have instant eligibility. So that's they're trying to quell that very same thing that we're talking about here.
Yeah, and you'll talk to people who will say, hey, why not? People should be able to go wherever they want to go. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But if you're gonna do that, why don't we just call a spade and say, all right, just let's open everything up. There's no and some states have done that. California's done that, Florida's done that, where basically you can just transfer wherever, and you're eligible. And maybe that's the way it needs to. That's what some people would like it to be. And I would argue that's not for the good of high school athletics, probably. But I think there's some truth to that you should be able to go where you want to go for whatever reason. But I think there also needs to be some, something in place to, either let's call it for what it is, or, there's got to be some way to, it might be the schools kind of ratting each other out, maybe a little bit. And I know that does happen, but, if there's just open, if we're recruiting kids at the middle school level, I'm not sure I'm not sure what's right, what's wrong, but let's, maybe it needs to be more in the open of kind of what's happening here.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to get deemed ineligible from looking at the numbers. 92% of transfers get to play. So, and one of the things is the IHSA is just not set up to spend all that time and resources tracking that stuff.
No, I did a bigger story about 5 years ago about the transfer model in Indiana and how the process works and how it compares to other states. And I think the frustration from some people in Indiana, people who've gone through this process, is that the rule is not as black and white as some other states are, where, I know in Ohio, up until last year, Ohio, for about the last 5 or 6 years, if you transferred, you had to sit out the first half of the season that you played in. So you'd have to, like for football, you basically sit out the first 5 games. Or in I think it was Nebraska, a couple other states, you would have to sit out a semester. So if you were a baseball player who transferred, you transferred and came in, you'd be ineligible for the first half of your school year, but you'd be able to play baseball the next year. So it's a little bit more black and white as far as that goes. But I would, Indiana also, I think, and this is Bobby Cox's from the IHSA, the commissioner, he would say our rule gives us more flexibility to get kids eligible, rather than just blanketly, make them ineligible. And I would agree that is probably true, that for the most part they are able to get kids eligible. But I think the frustration lies in the ones who are ineligible feel like, well, why us? What makes us different than the kid down the street who is eligible? And you've seen cases where it looks very similar on the surface. But they found, maybe that one was investigated more just because they had time to look into it, where, the kid down the street didn't get looked into. And I've seen things like that happen before, and I don't think it's the fault of the IHSAA. But like you said, and like I've written, I mean, they just don't have, they're not an investigative committee, they don't have time for all the investigation process. So they don't have the manpower, and they've said that before. But it's just, I think that's where the frustration lies. Why can this kid do it and I can't? And you think I'm transferring for athletic reasons and he's not. And so I think that's where some of it comes from. And the Aaron Gordon situation several years ago was one that kind of kickstarted that story I did a few years ago. But that was a high profile one where he transferred from North Central to Cathedral and was signed off on actually by both schools, and they decided to look into it and deemed him ineligible. So, there's cases out there that have been similar to that. But again, it's just, I think some people's frustration just lies in the, how the process works here.
Yeah, and you mentioned at the top of the segment as well, a part of it is, when I grew up, I went to Floyd Central. I lived out in the county. It's not like I lived in Marion County in that big downtown setting where these guys can it's easier for them to do that. You got people that live out in communities, and it's a little more difficult for that to happen. It happens everywhere, but it's a little less likely in those places than it is in, say, Indianapolis, where you have so many more schools in much more denser populated area.
Yeah, really. I mean, ever since I've been here, it's the Marion County that's very fluid. I mean, it's not only athletics, but kids just going to different schools because you are so close to other schools. You have options that are near your home, and that's just kind of the nature of living in a metropolitan area. So, again, that's not I don't think that's unique necessarily to Indianapolis. It's just kind of the nature of a metro area. But you do see, it's like, watching the Charlie Hughes, it's like, well, he's on this team now, or he's on, what happened here? It just seems to be like, and again, and you do hear like, all right, dad's living here and mom's living here. He decided to go here instead. And okay, well, that makes sense. But, when you see a kid who has no connection to another area of the county and he's at that school, and then you kind of hear the backstory on how it happened, it just kind of, it's like, wow, this is really, it's really clearly recruiting, or clearly, something, there was conversations that happened to get that kid there, and it's just, it's kind of like, and again, it's not, I don't blame the kid or whatever, but let's not put our head in the sand either and pretend it's not happening. So, again, I don't know. I think it's a conversation that's interesting, and I've got a lot of, like I said, a lot of people have chimed in about it, and that was kind of the point of it. Let's get it out there a little bit and have a conversation about it. I don't know if anything needs to change necessarily, but I think it's something that the recruiting is definitely just it's become really, really obvious, especially in certain schools.
Well, and again, you talked about this, but it's Indiana high school basketball. It's an institution into itself. I don't have to tell anybody that, but it's been based on these communities or these schools playing each other and the pride that they get to take in that, and that kind of gets watered down when you start doing all the transfer stuff, because as I said, you got these teams out here that really don't have that opportunity to get these transfers as easy. So now these teams are at a disadvantage per se. It kind of changes the fabric of Indiana high school basketball.
Well, I think certain schools can kind of, I guess, build off what they've built within their system, and that's, and tradition, and things like that. And that's what you have to kind of, sell out to completely if you're in places like that. But you even look around, it's not only limited to, you look at Bar Reeve, they've got a transfer coming in this year. That's not a place where you'd think, and I'm not saying the kid got recruited there or anything nefarious happened, but it does happen elsewhere, other than Marion County, and it's not and again, I'm not saying it's a problem, but it does happen. There's not a like all Marion County is bad and the rest of the state is pure and great and good, and it's just it happens everywhere. And it's not, and you're right. I mean, it's different in rural areas. You don't get the opportunity. You don't have the number of kids, obviously in the pool that you to pick from, so to speak. But it does happen. And even like the Greensburg, when they were winning state championships, Brian McIntosh, he came from Newcastle. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but if you go back through history, I think it'd be kind of interesting to go back through the history and see where kids came from exactly, and even like I mentioned in that story, the very first Indiana high school state championship team, Crawfordsville, and I did a story on them years ago, and I knew this already, but they had a transfer from their biggest rival, which was Lebanon, and they beat Lebanon in the state championship game. So it's literally been happening for 100 years, transferring, but like I said, it's the recruiting aspect of it is, and because of the lines of delineation between AAU and high school has kind of sort of been softened, or there's so much, there's AAU coaches who coach high school. There's certain programs have, friends on staff of AAU programs so it's all kind of intermingled. There's not a black and white high school and AAU anymore. It's all kind of in the same mix of people. So, there's relationships there, and I don't know how you police relationships. You can't. So it's I think that is something that's definitely changed in the last decade or so too, or maybe even in the last 5 years more than ever.
Talking with Kyle Neddenbrough at the Indianapolis Star. Kyle, also a big day tomorrow down in North Augusta, South Carolina, as the Nike EYBL Peach Jam gets underway, where a lot of these guys, or some of these guys we're talking about, looking for to be seen by some of these college coaches. The recruiting has changed in that regard, but that's a big event, man.
Yeah, big event, and we'll have actually Zach Osterman will be down at in the Adidas AAU event. That I believe that's in Birmingham, Alabama. But so he'll be covering that for us, and I think he'll be doing some other work for other Gannett papers across the country. So looking forward to seeing what he writes, and yeah, I had a chance to see a lot of those kids that'll be at those places. I kind of focus obviously on the in-state kids, and had a great opportunity in June to see a lot of them play several times. And, I'll be curious what happens, like a guy like Christian Lander at Evansville Wrights, kind of, how much he continues to blow up and kind of what happens with his recruitment and Caleb First and some of those guys who are in the 2021 class. To me, that class is more interesting probably than even the 2020, but some really good storylines, and I'll have a story actually coming up later this week on kind of some of the storylines as we get into this last period of really the last evaluation period, and then they'll have the team camps or the camps at the end of the month at 4 different places in the country. But this is really the last chance for the AAU teams to get together and play in front of college coaches, and you're right, the Peach Jam's always a big one, and Adidas will have a big one down there in Alabama too, and Under Armour as well as somewhere down there in the South as well. So this is a big week for AAU basketball for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned that 2021 class, and no one better to ask you about than this. How historically, this is a gigantic class of talent. I mean, there is a ton of talent. I'm trying to think back a year that would be similar to this, but it's a pretty big year for Indiana talent, which produces a ton of talent.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, after watching these guys play in June, a lot of them, and you just kind of go down the list, and it's like, wow, this kid's better than I thought. This kid's better than I thought, and just the sheer number. I would compare it to 2012 probably. That had at the top you had Gary Harris and Yogi Ferrell and Glenn Robinson the third, and that was a really deep. Even like R.J. Hunter, who's bounced around the NBA a little bit, who barely made the Indiana All-Star team that year. That had Devontae Smith-Rivera, who transferred to Oak Hill for his senior year, went to Georgetown. That was a really deep class. I would have to go back and look how many Division I guys came out of that class. It was a ton. But this class, I think, is, as far as depth goes, could rival that one. And as I see guys like Cooper Jacoby play from Silver Creek, and of course his teammate Trey Kaufman gets a ton of recognition, and he's an excellent prospect as well. But I see a guy like that, and Indiana State's all over him, and like, man, there's going to be more than enough if you stay on some of these guys. If you're coming in from out of state, you're a mid-major. I would keep recruiting these guys because the in-state schools just aren't going to have enough room for them all. So I think there's going to be it's going to be a pretty bountiful class, and a lot of good size. Players with size, and as usual, really good shooters in that class too. So that class is excellent. 2020 is not bad. It's not as deep and not probably as good at the top, but there are some really good players in there. But yeah, 2021 is good. I think 2022 is promise as well.
And I know IU's not your beat, but how important is it to IU, the recruiting, to get a good chunk of guys out of that 2020 class, or 2021 rather? Christian Lander is probably going to be at the top, of course, but there's a lot of talent there that Indiana needs to get that program going in the direction it really needs to get to. And it's just, I think it's extremely important that they make a statement by getting the top guys out of that class.
Well, yeah, I know. I was down at the IU team camp in June, and I went to the Charlie Hughes and the top 100. So I was at a lot of the games that Archie Miller was at, and Christian Lander is. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. He's clearly a priority, and Archie Miller is recruiting him as such, and he's at all of his games, and he would be the kind of the next in line, at that point guard spot. And he's to me, I've been super impressed with him. He seems to be getting taller and kind of filling out a little bit, and he just has that extra gear. Every time you see him, it's like, man, he's taking his game to another level. So that class is important, but I think getting the right the right people out of that class will be of utmost importance. And I think like I said, I think Purdue, that's a big class for them too, to get the right guys. Caleb First out of Fort Wayne is a guy that he was at the IU team camp too that I was at, but Purdue's been on him for a long time, and another player that I really like, about 6'9" and really athletic and talented. So, and then you throw Trey Kaufman, and those three. I'm probably forgetting somebody, but they're definitely right at the top of that class. And then, like I said, there's another dozen guys who I think will end up being high majors out of that class that just keep getting better and better. But the more important thing is to just get the right guys. Make sure you get the right guys, whether they're from Indiana or not. But especially, how it is around here. I mean, it's good PR if you can bring in a top ranked or a Mr. Basketball or a highly regarded guy from in the state. People really like that, and especially if they can come in and contribute for you in a big way.
And you talk about getting the right guy. Indiana also looking for an assistant coach right now. But one of the problems they'd had before was they had lost that connection to the Indiana high schools, it seemed, at the end of the Tom Crean era. But Archie seems to have done a great job repairing that. So how important is this hire from a recruiting standpoint, more for outside of the borders of Indiana?
Well, I mean, yeah, kind of from the outside looking in, I don't know for sure what they're looking for, but that would seem to make sense to me. I mean, because it seems like Archie himself has done, a lot of the recruiting of the in-state kids. And, so I think I would think number one, you'd want to look for a dynamic recruiter who maybe knows an area that you're not getting into now, or that you think you can get into. That would make sense. So, and maybe that is the Midwest, and you kind of build from within and then work outwardly. But yeah, we've seen, different ways to go about that. And I would think, though, number one, they'd want to get somebody who just is a good recruiter, and maybe I'm not a believer that the area of the country where you get a guy from is necessarily matters. It's just that you are a good recruiter and know how to interact with kids and know how to recruit. So, I think that's what they'll look for. I think, but I do think they are doing a good job of recruiting the state. I think you've seen it the last couple of years, being able to get, the top guys from in the state, Romeo Langford, and then Trace Jackson Davis and Armand Franklin in this latest class. So, it seems like they are, making an impact here in the state and have kind of a good reputation. And, I know, from talking to Tom Crean, they felt like there was a lot of different reasons why they missed out on those guys from in the state over the past several years of his tenure. And not all of them were probably their own fault necessarily, but there were a few big misses and things they probably could have done better. Kyle Guy was definitely one.
Yes.
That
was
got
already
away
in my
from
mind
him in a big way. So, but I think Indiana's making a lot of headway recruiting in Indiana.
Kyle Neddenrip from the Indianapolis Star, man, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Hey, no problem, Jim. Anytime.
Thank you, brother. Have a good one. Have a great summer. Kyle Neddenrip from the Indianapolis Star joining us here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Beat. We're back with more right after this.
So my bed is tired and bold. All these questions I've collected.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, of course, coming to you from the golf club at Eagle Point Studios. Great time to get out and play some golf, by the way. Man, no rain, dry weather, a little warm, but I can tell you one thing. The fairways at Eagle Point are looking unbelievable, like Augusta. Speaking of Augusta, the Peach Jam gets underway today down in North Augusta, South Carolina. Tomorrow, the Adidas Gauntlet gets underway. Down there, you'll have the Indiana Elite Team. We'll talk with Zach Osterman from the Indianapolis Star tomorrow from Birmingham. Guys like Christian Lander and that crew are down on the Adidas Gauntlet Tour. So looking forward to that. Tonight, the ESPYs, man. They've been going on for quite a while. This year hosted by Tracy Morgan. He's one of my favorites. He's a funny dude. Everybody's got their impersonation of Tracy Morgan. I don't do it very good. I know that I think I did see that Tyler Trent is being posthumously awarded the Arthur Ashe Courage Award. His family will be there to receive that. So wish them well as being duly recognized for the struggle that Tyler Trent went through last year. Of course, everyone is well aware of that courageous battle he put up, and he was all that he went through and the attitude that he was able to maintain. pretty incredible. But that's something you can look forward to tonight on the ESPYs. I don't know where they're coming from. I'm not sure where they are with that as far as the location of that tonight. But Tracy Morgan will be hosting. Something to check out on the tube. Of course, plenty of basketball action about to start. Like I said, the Nike Peach Jam starts today. I think most of the Indiana targets are going to be on the Adidas Gauntlet Tour. As I said, that Indiana team with Christian Lander and whatnot, they will be down there. His recruitment has already taken off. Man, he's got offers from all over. Indiana, Kansas, Michigan. Everybody's starting to come at him, but he's talked about this earlier. He's the top-rated player in Indiana. The new updated rankings came out, 2021 class, and Christian's number 18. He's a 5-star. Of course, Trey Kaufman. Right now, they've got him as a 4-star, but he jumped up. He jumps up 35 spots. Wow. He's number 31, and then Caleb First is number 36. You got 3 kids from Indiana in the top 36. That's pretty daggone good. And you could see more with that class because it is loaded. I mean, it is absolutely loaded. You're going to see a lot of guys coming at it at some of these players that may not have reached out to them just yet. But it's going to be very, very important. That's a class that is extremely important for Archie Miller and to see what they can do. And, of course, we've talked about earlier the fact that they are down a man. They're also trying to recruit an assistant coach right now. And text in from Tim said, so right now, let's see. He was looking at the Rivals 2021 class. Out of the top 15 5-stars, only have one offer, and that's Terrence Clark. IU is favored at 37%. Yeah, I don't go by all that stuff. It's way, 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 way too soon. There's some guesswork by those guys in that. So it'd be like for Christian Lander, I don't know that there is any favor. I think that he is truly open right now. I don't know that he has any favorites. I know that he grew up a Michigan fan. Michigan's one of the teams that's not chasing him right now, which they're not chasing. They don't seem to be chasing him hard, but that could change too. You've got a new coach there with Juwan Howard. So we'll see how that works out. But Christian Lander, no doubt, is going to be one of the most, I've said this many times, one of the most sought after players in the country as his stock continues to stay high. Trey Kaufman, the kid out of Silver Creek, man, what an emergence he has made. Like I said, jumping 35 spots. That's huge. He's had a really good AAU session. And so he's being recognized for that. Kid out of Southern Indiana, down in Silver Creek near Louisville. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Louisville jumping into the fray hard. Then you got Caleb First again. 3 players from Indiana in the top 36 that are Indiana targets. All these guys are going to be playing over the next few days. And we'll keep track of it. Like I said, on the show tomorrow, we've got Scott Agnes. He's coming to us from Las Vegas as the NBA Summer League continues. We'll talk with Scott and see how that is working on, not just for the Pacers, but some for the IU players. Zach Osterman of the Indianapolis Stars is going to be with us from Birmingham, site of the Adidas Gauntlet. So looking forward to catching up on there because that's where I'd say the majority of the IU targets are going to be over these next several days, at least the top targets. That's for certain. The NBA Summer League going on last night. The Jazz beat Portland 97-93. Juwan Morgan played 17 minutes. He was 3 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 behind the three-point line. He had 6 rebounds along with 7 points. Probably the best performance he's had of the Summer League, to my knowledge. He had – if he had done anything more than that, I sure missed it. But that seemed to be the best game that he's had so far. Last night, the American League National League All-Star Game, Major League Baseball took place in Cleveland. The American League wins 4-3. Man, when I was growing up, the National League won all the time. And then there was a switch, and the American League started winning. But, hey, we've got a lot more coming up on the program here. Today, IU beat writer Kevin Brockway from CNHI is going to join us. We're going to also be talking with Stu Jackson from Indiana Rivals as well. Stay tuned. We've got that and much more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. Coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. We're back with more right after this.
Days when the rains came down in the hollow, playing a new game, laughing and a running, hey, hey, skipping and a jumping.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Graham. Keep up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
This hour is brought to you by Sweetland Waste and Removal Service, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Come on along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. Coming to you, of course, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hope your week's been off to a good start here as we've hit the midway point. And hope we can keep it headed in that right direction. On the program today, IU beat writers Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers will join us, as will Stu Jackson from Indiana Rivals. Lots going on as far as basketball beginning today down in North Augusta, South Carolina. The Nike Peach Jam starts tomorrow. The Adidas Gauntlet in Birmingham carries on. We'll have reports from Birmingham this week, as well as from Las Vegas with Scott Agnes tomorrow in the NBA Summer League that continues to roll on. Last night in NBA Summer League action, the Utah Jazz taking on the Portland Trail Blazers. Juwan Morgan plays for the Jazz. He had probably his best night of the run so far. He had played 17 minutes, was 3 of 5 from the field, 1 of 3 behind the three-point line, ended up with 7 points and 6 rebounds. So a decent night for Juwan, probably the best night, like I said, that I've seen him have statistically. It's about the amount of minutes that he's been playing, which not a ton, but he's getting some minutes, and his production continues to increase. Hopefully that'll help him, whatever it ends up being, where he ends up going. Not sure, but hopefully this gives him all the experience he needs to continue a career in the professionally. So we look forward to that. Also, later on today, we have the opportunity to continue to meet with some IU football players, Ivory Winters, Matthew Bedford, a couple other guys, freshmen that we'll be talking to, and we'll have all that for you the remainder of the week. But Ivory Winters is part of that vaunted running backs class that Indiana's going to have this year. So looking forward to talking to him. Matthew Bedford, of course, one of the guys that's going to be helpful on the line. So a lot of coming up. Media Day for the Big Ten is next week. We'll be live from Chicago for that. Coming to you from the Hilton up there. That is on the 18th and 19th. Indiana speaks on the first day, I believe, which is the Thursday. Tom Allen will be on the dais, as well as 3 players that Indiana will be taking up there. So look forward to having all that for you as well. But it's all about basketball right now as the AAU summer season is about to come to a close. Said 2 of the big deals, the Nike Peach Jam. These things used to be even bigger, but it's taken a little bit of a hit, but not really. I don't know how much change there's actually been because coaches are still allowed to go. And I haven't heard a ton of complaining yet as to limits of recruiting and whatnot. But it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. The biggest question for Indiana right now, of course, is who's going to be the next assistant coach for Archie Miller. Not only is Archie out looking for new players, he's obviously using this probably as an opportunity to interview prospective guys to fill that spot. Because this is where they're going to be out and about anyway. And the tricky thing is whoever he gets is currently recruiting for somebody else. And obviously recruiting is all about relationships. We hear Tom Allen talk about that all the time. And no one would know more than someone like who's been as successful as he has been here for the IU football program. So therefore, those relationships that this new coach is going to have, is he going to be able to bring over the people he's already recruiting? That gets a little touchy situation for whoever they're recruiting for currently. They're not going to want to see that happen. And a lot of times there's a gentleman's agreement that you kind of drop those, but that's not always what the kids want. I mean, the kids, again, establish a relationship with whomever that may be, and they want to follow them. And if that ends up offering them a better opportunity, kind of like what happened with Jerome Hunter, to be honest with you. Archie was recruiting Jerome Hunter prior to him getting the job in Indiana. And one of the biggest reasons. That's why Indiana ended up getting Jerome Hunter. Of course, Jerome, one of the big question marks for IU basketball, whether or not he's going to be able to play ever, unfortunately, dealing with a very unique and condition that he's been, a health condition that he's been dealing with for the last, not able to play all of last season. Now, this season, no word yet on whether or not that's going to change as he continues to try to get to that level. But just an example, though, of a recruit that Archie was able to bring in, but someone he was already recruiting. So you're probably going to see that. And because of that, IU's recruiting could change drastically for the better very quickly, depending on who that hire is. It could definitely be an instant bonus for this team. Obviously, the in-state recruiting not been that much of a problem. They've landed the last two Indiana Mr. Basketballs along with Armand Franklin. So inside the state, Archie has done a good job of repairing whatever damage there had been done with the prior staff, as we all know that the recruits toward the end of the Tom Crean era did not have much of an Indiana flavor. It had gotten kind of broken, but Archie has personally went out and tried to repair that and has done a good job getting out and establishing his own relationships. Because and I mentioned that because there's been a lot of talk about having an IU guy in there or an Indiana guy in there. And that's never going to hurt. But if you go back through the years, even look at Bob Knight's assistants. I'm going to say the majority of those guys may not have had initially an Indiana connection, but you never know. And the game has changed so much. The recruiting game has changed so much that that's not completely necessary that you have that. It's nice. It's nice that you can have an IU guy on there just for tradition standpoint. But by IU guy, does that mean an IU guy from the 90s or the 2000s? Or because IU in the 90s and the 2000s were different animals. So is that even the same? So when it comes down to it, whether or not they're an IU guy, an Indiana guy, to me, it doesn't really matter. Is he the right guy? The right guy is who you want. The right guy to get the job done. The right guy to do what they're not able to do right now, and that is to recruit nationally. And that's not anything that's lost on Archie Miller. He's going to get the absolute best person to fill that role that he can. For obvious reasons, he wants to win. His job's on the line. You know, that's doing the best that he can is what's prevalent to him. He wants to remain the basketball coach at Indiana, so I expect him to get as good of a recruiter as he can find. Hopefully that changes IU's fortunes quickly and allows Indiana to begin reestablishing themselves as the power they have been, and that has kind of gone away. And it's something that I see being restored mainly because of where Indiana is located, in a state that produces a ton of talent. And back in the day, it was, again, you're able to keep those guys a lot easier. There wasn't social media broadcasting their exploits all over the country. There wasn't all this video broadcasting these exploits all over the country. That's one of the reasons recruiting has gotten so much more difficult. It's gone to a national, much more national issue. I mean, it used to be a lot of regional guys. You look back at the teams from way back, lots and lots of guys from Indiana and from the region, from the Midwest, from Chicago, from Ohio. And you still see that. But then now you're adding in some guys from much further away. And you've got teams that are recruiting from all over the place. You got lots of teams that are recruiting into the state of Indiana. So it's there's just been changes in the advent of social media, like I said, that gets so much more exposure for these guys. I mean, 20 years ago, we weren't talking about a Peach Jam or a Gauntlet. We weren't talking about this stuff. There wasn't YouTube. There wasn't all this stuff that gets all these exploits of how good these guys are so far out. All these recruiting services, it's gone to the nth degree. So it has definitely made it more difficult. But there's other things that have gone into that factor. Not performing well, not not recruiting the state particularly well at times. There are just all kinds of things that have gone in that have to be rectified. And it's not an easy job. And it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Archie Miller or whomever. It's just not an easy job to do. But hopefully this hire will be the start of getting back to that. We'll certainly see. And I think it's something that's got to happen a little sooner rather than later because of the time of year that we're in. Text into the show, OG Anunoby should get more playing time now with Kawhi Leonard gone. Well, that and the fact that he'll be coming off that injury. So hopefully so. But we've got a lot coming up here on the program, like I said. Stu Jackson from Indiana Rivals. He's going to join us next. We'll get completely caught up into the AAU circuit, what's going on, and we'll talk about the coaching search as well. Stay tuned. We've got a lot more coming up from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat will be back with more right after this.
It was a clear black night, a clear white moon. Warren G was on the streets trying to consume some skirts for the E so I could get some phones. Rolling in my ride, chilling all alone.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day, or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, joined now by our good friend Stu Jackson from Indiana Rivals. Stu, how are you, man?
Jim, I'm doing great this morning. How about you?
Good, good. How's your summer going? I saw you were on vacation out to Colorado not too long ago. Man, it looked beautiful. It looked like a fun trip.
Yeah, it was great. With the way that the season and the recruiting cycle works, there really isn't too much of an off season. So try to get into vacation whenever I can find that window, and usually it happens to fall around the 4th of July. And yeah, had a great time. Did a lot of hiking and kayaking and enjoying the great outdoors overall. So it was a great time.
Yeah, not a lot of break. Obviously, we've got a lot of things started kicking off today. The Peach Jam starts today. The Adidas Gauntlet tomorrow. We've got IU football media days next week. Not long after that, the football season starts. Because I mentioned earlier, we can literally say right now that the football season kicks off next month, and that seems crazy to me.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. It almost seems like one of the shortest off seasons I can remember. With local media day coming up pretty soon in early August, and then of course, like you mentioned, Big Ten media day next week, and everything else that's going on. It's crazy how fast it's come up here. But I think a lot of readers and fans, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners as well, are ready for football season to start and to learn more about what's at stake here for the program in 2019.
Absolutely. I think it's an exciting time. They sure seem to have a lot of pieces and parts in place to have a successful season. We'll find out as they kick off things on the 31st at the Lucas Oil against the Ball State. But right now, it's about basketball and the AAU circuit coming to a head right now as the Peach Jam starts today down in North Augusta, South Carolina. The Adidas Gauntlet tomorrow. But I think most of the IU targets are down in the Adidas run. Is that true?
Yeah, there's going to be a fairly even contingent. I think it'll be pretty evenly split. But as I'm sure you and most of your listeners are aware, if you've been listening to the show or following any number of IU reporters, the big names to know for Adidas will be Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway, kids in the 2020 class, and then of course you've got in 2021, Caleb First and Christian Lander, who are both playing with Spieth Indy Heat and will be down at Peach Jam for the Nike event. So there's obviously more names than that, but that's kind of the who everybody's been focusing on this summer primarily among many other names.
Stu, with the changes brought on by the NCAA, what have you seen as far as differences this year versus last year on the recruiting circuit for the coaches?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just how the I guess I'd say how the evaluation periods have been scheduled or set up rather. And so in the past, we've had there's been a couple of evaluation periods in the spring, in April that is. Then you have, a couple in July at least. And, this year they had one in June, I guess as a means of, for not having the second spring evaluation period. But, one thing that's different this summer is they've only got one evaluation period for non-scholastic events. So what that means is this week is going to be the only evaluation period where college coaches can attend Nike or Adidas or Under Armour type of sponsored events. In the past, in late July, Las Vegas has been a massive evaluation period and event because there's so many different tournaments going on, and anytime I've been there, it feels like every college coach under the sun is out there, watching kids play, but they won't be able to attend in person this year because of changes the NCAA made to the recruiting calendar. Now, there's still an evaluation period that week, but July 23rd through the 28th is going to be strictly for scholastic events. So the regional camps that the NCAA came up with, the ones that are in Champaign and Houston, and I'm missing a couple other locations, but it's 4 different regional camps split out geographically. But point being, it's spread out, but it's also a lot different, and I don't know that it's necessarily different for the better, but kind of reserving judgment on that until I actually get to either one of these regional camps or head out to Las Vegas and see what it's like without the college coaches there. Still figuring that out.
Yeah, is it too soon, as far as I know, to make a judgment yourself? You just said that, but have you heard any from coaches and the participants and whatnot? Have you heard any conversations about what the thought is right now on whether it is as good, worse, better, anything of the nature?
Yeah, it's I think it's still a little bit early to tell. I will say it was probably a lot easier to manage when you had the old format, as far as just letting coaches be able to attend the non-scholastic events and not having to worry about, or not having AU coaches having to worry about trying to convince kids like, hey, you need to play with us and not, go to this regional camp and that sort of thing. So, I would say the biggest difference is just going to be, the talent discrepancy. That's not to say the kids who get invited to regional camps aren't good players and that sort of thing, but it's just a different competition level when you're playing at these shoe circuit events or when you're playing in Vegas and things like that, and you typically get more out of it. So, but again, I mean, until I learn and hear and see more, I won't judge too much on that whole setup and what all that entails and how it turns out.
Obviously, Indiana is down a coach right now. One of the things that Archie's out recruiting, in addition to players, is a new coach. Everyone's wondering who's that going to be and what his qualifications are going to be. Is he going to be an IU guy, blah, blah. And obviously, the only thing that matters is if he's the right guy. Is it hurting Indiana at all to be down that guy right now during this period of basketball?
I think maybe just a little bit. While it's a hire that you certainly don't want to rush, and I can understand that because, again, it doesn't seem like all too long ago that that change was made. It's a hire that you want to make sure you get right. It would be ideal, I think, to have the assistant coach in place for this evaluation period. Again, considering just how I feel about what I believe the potential talent discrepancies will be at some of these scholastic events versus the non-scholastic events. So, it's just one of those things where it very much looks like Archie Miller and the rest of the staff and the program are going to take their time finding the right guy to fill the spot vacated by former assistant Ed Schilling. So we'll see what happens. Bill Comar, who's the director of basketball operations, he's going to be out and about this week and kind of temporarily fill those roles and duties until they get that hired. That was something that he also did during the evaluation period in late June as well. So they have a plan in place as far as just making sure that they're covering all of their bases and that sort of thing. It would be nice to have that hire filled right now, but at the same time, you can also understand why they'd want to take their time and make sure they get it right.
And a big thing is it seems like the recruiting is set for this season. They have the 2 open spots, but not expecting a lot to change there. So everything else is going forward. Archie has done a good job of himself going out and being the guy that's kind of recruiting Indiana. And he's done a decent job there, bringing in, of course, the last 2 Mr. Basketballs. Nationally is where IU has fallen off a little bit. But, of course, that's not just the recruiting side. That's Indiana itself has fallen off as far as being a national brand somewhat. So that's been a difficult thing, but that's where obviously the recruiting needs to pick up, and whoever he hires is more than likely going to be someone who has a national flavor.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, the one thing I thought our national analyst Eric Bossi made a great point in the 3-point play article he wrote for this week. He brought up Indiana as one of the programs to watch this week because, and one of the things that's helpful for Archie at least is that there's no like go to or like highly sought after in-state kid that he has to go out after like a Romeo Langford. That's not in any way me trying to disrespect Trey Galloway and Anthony Wheeler, who are very talented players in their own right and represent the state very well. But there's no, national top 5, top 10 kid that, there's an immense amount of pressure to recruit. So I think that helps in a way because he can focus more on some of the, other guys that are targeting nationally, like, like Caleb Love, for example, the point guard from national top 40 point guard from Christian Brothers in St. Louis. So it's a very interesting situation, and I'm sure that fans would love to get a commitment sooner rather than later or see a commitment pop up, but it's just one of those things that it's going to take some time, and for Indiana, I think it just winning with any program, whether it's basketball or football, winning and making deep runs in the NCAA tournament, that kind of exposure is what helps your program recruit on a national level, and that's just what Indiana's going to need to see more of in order to be a bigger player in some of those national recruitments, like you mentioned.
And a lot of times in situations like this, you'll see names start to come out and about, and there have been a couple lists thrown out. But to me, those lists have kind of just been common sense lists, names that are just taken from a common sense standpoint. I think people like Pat Holmes at La Lemure or Keurig, who used to coach with Archie. But I haven't really heard anything substantial as far as potentials to fill that role. Have you?
Yeah, nothing definitive on my end either. This is something that is very much being played close to the vest, I think, which, knowing how, Archie and his staff and then the program as a whole operate, that's not entirely surprising. So, you would think that it would, you would hope the hire would be in place, like we kind of talked about before, prior to the final evaluation period in July. But if not, then, I'm sure they would have another contingency plan in place just in case. And then by the same token, it would give them a little bit more time to make sure they get the hire right before practices start back up sometime in September.
And I mentioned earlier, there's a faction of the fan base, of course, that would always like to see an IU guy in there, quote unquote, whatever that means. But at this stage, obviously, I think if you look around the country at teams, their best recruiter, their new fresh recruiter, they usually don't have it. It's just whoever is doing a great job. And again, getting the right guy for the job is what's more important to Archie and to the staff and the program, I think. So where they come from, to me, does not really matter, is what they can do and what they can bring to the program. And I think that with that, Indiana being a program that may not be having the success right now that they have had in so many years past, I think it is a program because that it can get there very quickly with the right changes and the right additions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's the discussion on whether or not it should be an Indiana guy is really interesting because I'm sure that people would love to have somebody like that make a homecoming of sorts, but at the same time, you want to make sure it's the absolute right hire, somebody who has, like you mentioned, the recruiting chops and things like that, and fits the bill as far as what meets the needs of the current needs of the staff, and so. If that happens to be an Indiana guy, terrific. But at the same time, the last thing you want to do, in my opinion at least, is hire an Indiana guy. And then for whatever reason, it doesn't work out, or you find out, it's not as good of a fit as you realized. And suddenly that, that relationship is, a little bit awkward. So we'll see what happens. It's, either way, there's obviously a lot of interest and there will continue to be a lot of speculation, I imagine, as far as who ends up being the hire and things like that.
Switching gears to football a little bit, big doings next week up in Chicago. The Big Ten Football Media Days gets underway. Indiana will be speaking on day one on Thursday. But Indiana has got a lot of great parts and pieces coming back this year. A little bit of pressure is going to be on Tom Allen, too. Not a little bit, but actually I think that they have to reach a bowl this year for his seat not to get hot.
Yeah, I mean, I respectfully disagree. I mean, I don't think I don't think it'll put so much pressure that he'll be on the hot seat. Just because you look at the way he's recruiting and the talent he's bringing in, and I think that will give him plenty of time, or at least take some of the pressure off. What I will say though is that you're absolutely right about needing to make a bowl game, because the part of what will allow this program to take that next step is to continually improve upon, or bring in more talent, and at least from my perspective, bring in those higher ranked class. I know that's the stars and things like that aren't things that coaches and programs pay all that much attention to. So that's why I'm saying from my perspective, but you need to get to those bowl games to give your program exposure and show kids that they can get this exposure and get this additional exposure as far as playing in front of NFL scouts and those sorts of things. And it's also just, everybody who, plays college football wants to play in that kind of environment where, you're playing meaningful football in December or January, and you're playing winning football in the regular season. So, in that regard, it is certainly a year where I think a bowl game is an absolute must.
And, well, the good thing is I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think Indiana gets to a bowl game this year. They've just got a lot of great parts and pieces coming in, made some personnel changes that I think will be enough at least to get them headed in that right direction, because, as you mentioned, the recruiting job that Tom Allen and his staff has done has been absolutely phenomenal. It's just been a great job done by a guy that came in under a lot of question marks for having not been a head coach before. But, man, the job he's done recruiting, Stu, it's nothing short of amazing for a program that doesn't have a good history of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a credit to, Coach Allen being very forward thinking, I would say, just because I remember when I sat down with him one-on-one in May, and I was asking him, about just the changes he's made, with on-campus recruiting and the department as a whole and what that's looked like. And I was amazed when he told me that prior to his arrival, they did not have a director of on-campus recruiting. That included his first year as defensive coordinator. So in that regard, he went out and hired that person, and then he also made some other changes where, like, they have to hire full-time people to give tours of campus and go through the academic parts of things and all that. Because they used to have student interns do that before, but the NCAA got rid of that. And so just all these different things. It was really fascinating to, hear all about all of those changes. But long way of saying that it's something that he's very conscious about, and he's constantly examining, trying to figure out what can we do to sell Indiana as best as we possibly can, and attract the type of talent that we want to attract.
Stu, are you working on anything for the Hoosier.com?
Right now, I'm just focused on getting all my content submitted for this year's basketball preview magazine. It's a little bit of a slower time of the year, really just, around the time when, watch lists are getting close to coming out. We're getting close to the start of fall camp for football, but outside of, being in John Sauber from our site will be in Birmingham for the Adidas Summer Championships. But other than that, it's just waiting for media day for both Big Ten and locally for IU football, and then just finishing up the last of basketball recruiting here before we return to the more team focused side of coverage here this fall. So it's a slower time, but it's going to be picking up pretty soon, especially as we get closer to Labor Day weekend, when we're aiming to get our magazine off to the printer.
He's Stu Jackson. You can find him at thehoosier.com, a part of the Rivals Network. Stu, thank you, brother. Look forward to it as always. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Jim. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Stu Jackson from the Hoosier.com, part of the Indiana Rivals Network, joins us here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat coming back with Kevin Brockway next. Stay tuned. We're back right after this.
It's only teenage wasteland. Sally, take my hand. We'll travel south across land.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make it tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day, or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle with you as always. Just wrapped up with Stu Jackson from thehoosier.com. Now joined by Indiana beat writer Kevin Brockway from CNHI. Kevin, how are you today, man?
Good morning. How are things?
They're going well, man. They're going well. How's it going for you?
It's going good, but I guess, it's summer recruiting season, right? We've got some big events coming up, Peach Jam, Adidas Gauntlet, and down in Birmingham, Alabama. And I don't know if you've ever been to Hoover, Alabama, actually, where the Adidas Gauntlet is being played, but there's really not much to do there other than going to the Galleria Mall. So I'm sure when Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway aren't playing, they're going to end up getting a lot of mall time in.
Yeah, I have not, fortunately, been to Hoover, Alabama. So we'll rely on the guys that are there to do that. But yeah, it's a big time of year for the AAU circuit as it's kind of coming to a head. You've got the Peach Jam going on down in South Carolina, North Augusta, South Carolina, and of course the Gauntlet down in Alabama. Anybody that's being recruited, they're going to be playing over the weekends. A lot of big names for Indiana targets: Leo Galloway, Lander, Kaufman first. All those guys are going to be in action here or there.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty interesting because all signs right now are pointing towards Galloway and Leal in the 2020 class. And Galloway took his official visit, the weekend of June 25th. And I'm just curious about Leal. If Leal is a combo guard, we know Galloway is a pure 2, how that's going to work, or you play 3 guards, or how that navigates in that class where you have 2 guards. Now, obviously, if one of them gets hurt, the other one can step in. You can never have enough guys in the backcourt, I guess. But I find it interesting that, they're both being targeted in the same class, but you don't have that traditional point guard, shooting guard. You have both guys as shooting guards or maybe combo guards.
Yeah, I look at Galloway and I wonder, is he somebody that they may try to morph into more of a point guard because of exactly what you're bringing up right now? Because Leo definitely seems more of the off the shooting guard. Not that he couldn't play that position. I'm not saying that, but he just seems more naturally to fit that number 2 spot, where Galloway could probably migrate to the 1 if he needed to be. He's a pretty smart ball player, and I think he can migrate over there if he needed to.
Yeah, and of course, Galloway has the size too at 6'5", where you could probably even play him at the 3 a little bit, or make him a point forward type. Or you play 3 guards. You could do it that way also. And Leo's 6'4", and he's a strong kid too. So I guess you could get away from a size standpoint. So many teams now in college basketball playing 3 guards, 4 guards. Maybe it would work that way as well.
Well, Archie ran a lot of 3-guard offense last year, and I'm not sure if that's what he really wants to run or if this was a personnel decision because of what he had. A lot of problems with injuries last year. They lost their point guard in the middle of the season when Rob Finney went down with that concussion. So that was a huge deal, and it shows you again that a little surprising they haven't been able to lock down a point guard because there's still no backup for Rob Finney.
Yeah, that's true. And Devontae Green is the closest thing, but you've got a situation with him where, when he plays the point, he could be a little turnover prone. You want a guy really strong with the basketball, and certainly Finney is that. But what happens if Finney gets in foul trouble, or what happens if he gets injured like he did last year? It really, could create a dilemma for you. So it'll be interesting to see. That'll be a interesting storyline to look into as the season approaches.
Yeah, for me, Galloway, and I've said it, it's just a prediction, but to me, Galloway and Leo are both locks for IU, and that leaves them basically 2 spots to recruit next year. And that's another reason why right now they're down a coach. Archie is not only recruiting players, he's trying to recruit another assistant coach / recruiter, which to me, this job has been made easier because they have those 2 open spots, but I don't think they're going to attempt to fill them this year. So I think he can focus more probably on getting that coach and having Leland Galloway. I hate to use the term in the bag, but that they're probably going to be heading to Indiana would be my guess. That the recruiting is not as difficult because, again, you've only got a couple spots that you're going to be looking at, unless you're shooting for 3 extra guys next year with the possibility of a transfer or whatever.
Yeah, and we all know that happens too, but you'd like to have, you'd like to have the best guys by November that you can. I think that's the thing. I think whenever you're dealing with signing with guys in the spring, there's always a risk. And, you have transfers on the market, and certainly Indiana got a transfer with Joey Brunk, who Archie's really high on, not just for what he can provide on the court, but what he can provide off the court as well in terms of leadership and a guy that, maybe is going to be a good locker room guy and help with the chemistry issues that, of course, were pretty well documented last season.
Yeah, and talking about the Archie out recruiting a new coach, you came out with a list the other day. There's just been a couple lists, but not a lot of word out, man. I was talking to Stu about this, and it's just one of those things that I don't think you're going to know much until they announce who the new guy is.
Yeah, Archie's keeping it pretty close to the vest. I mean, Kevin Hewitt he's a guy who I think that certainly you would think with the familiarity with Archie, the fact that he worked with him and he's at Davidson now, that could make sense because it would be a step up for him, certainly, working at a higher major program from Davidson. And he's a guy that, he's an interesting guy in that you look at his leadership and his discipline. I mean, this was a guy that was a Army ROTC distinguished graduate at Notre Dame. He served 18 months. He took a leave of duty with the Indiana National Guard to serve in Operation Iraqi Freeman. I mean, you talk about a guy that could walk into a coaching staff and provide that kind of discipline and leadership. I mean, he could be that kind of a guy.
Yeah, and hopefully look forward to that. But it's a lot of people are, and then there's I talked to Stu about this as well. But a lot of people of some faction of the Hoosier Nation have been hung up on they really need to get an IU guy in there. And when you stop and think about it, this is a position of recruiting and coaching, obviously, but recruiting. And to me, this recruiter is going to be a guy who's going to be focusing more outside of the borders of Indiana. So being an IU guy to me doesn't really carry a lot of sway there.
Yeah, I mean, like Calvert Chaney, he had that 1 year in St. Louis as a coach, as an assistant coach, and now he's back in the G League. So, I mean, he's a guy that, has some NBA ties, obviously, from his days as a very successful player, too, when he went on with Indiana. So he certainly would be a guy that would check off the box in terms of a guy, not only an IU guy, but a guy that has NBA connections, which could be valuable because all these kids want to get to the NBA. I mean, that's the goal. But, is he the national recruiter? And at 47, does he carry that kind of cachet? Is he going to be able to, put the time in on the road and the effort, But when you look at Schilling's role, I mean, Schilling was more the in-state guy. So maybe you think about, having a guy that can do some recruiting in-state. I mean, Tom Ostrom, to me, strikes me as more the national guy going beyond these borders and getting people.
Yeah, and now Archie has Romeo in the NBA. He can say that now he's got a guy in the NBA, and that carries weight because I've seen a lot of potential recruits. They reference Romeo, and even though his year wasn't that great, the season wasn't that great. What these guys see is him making it to the league, and that's carries just a ton of weight with a lot of these guys.
No question. I mean, I think it's the biggest factor that when you look at recruiting, I mean, you look at what John Calipari has done across the border at Kentucky. I mean, that's his big selling point is, hey, look, I get players to the NBA, I get multiple players to the NBA, I get multiple players to the lottery. We're going to develop you. Maybe you'll stay a year or two and then you'll be gone, and I'll encourage you to go. So it's kind of interesting. And by doing that and by following that model the last 10 years, he's been able to get some of the best talent in the country as well. And it's kind of become the cycle for him that it's worked out. So, you get those guys that can, if you can develop and move on. And Archie certainly did that. And I mean, there's 77 of them that have gone out from Indiana. Now, a lot of them, it was a different era in the 80s and the 70s and the early 90s, but you'd like to establish that pipeline again.
Absolutely, and we've watched the NBA Summer League continue. Last night I watched Juwan Morgan play. He's been playing for the Jazz, of course. Probably had his best game as a pro. He had 7 points in 17 minutes. But having those guys out there, even it's in a situation like that, has got to help recruiting somewhat.
Yeah, and Jawan has long arms. We know that, in terms of making a roster, and he was a guy that, if he was going to make a roster, he probably would have had to make a bigger splash here in summer league, and hasn't quite, put up those numbers. But I think he's a guy that certainly will have an opportunity to play overseas, or if he wants to stick it out in the G League and stay within the United States and try to get on someone's radar that way, he could do that too. So. Really, as you know, a very tough kid who really answered the bell last season. You can talk about, I think Romeo was certainly the most talented Indiana player last season, but if you're talking about the most valuable and the guy that was, accountable and the leader every day, it was Jawan.
Absolutely. And not having Romeo in the summer league, he's still dealing with the after effects of his thumb surgery, but he's not playing, so you're not getting that IU recognition, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think they're probably thinking, what's going to be best for their future in terms of, him healing and being fully ready for the season. So they're taking a cautious approach, and it's probably warranted given his situation. But I'm sure in fall camp, they're hoping he'll be ready to go.
Tonight's the ESPYs, man. Did you win anything?
I did not win anything. No, unfortunately.
Not nominated. They haven't announced them yet, but didn't know if you were nominated for anything or not. Just kidding.
But IU football, we're getting near Big Ten Media Days. It's obviously that's going to be a lot of fun, and I think that we've got some interviews later this afternoon, right? And it's
Ivory Winters. Ivory Winters is one of those guys that I'm looking forward to meeting and talking to. Heard a lot about him, but he's part of that vaunted running backs recruiting class that has come in. And they've got a great running backs room. He's part of that, but he's gotten a little less attention than, say, the Samson James of the world. But Ivory Winters was a very highly sought after recruit.
Yeah, and this incoming freshman class that Tom Allen is bringing, obviously top 40 nationally, it's raising expectations, certainly, and it'll be interesting to go to Chicago next week and talking Big Ten football and being up there in that environment and seeing what people think about you, what people think about the job that Tom Allen is doing. It certainly is an uphill climb, as we know football here, but I think that, the radar is pointing up in terms of the talent that Tom Allen is bringing here. I think it's just a matter of, does it all come together and does it mesh well together? And do you have the right guy at quarterback leading the team? I think those are all really factors that you kind of look into as you're heading closer to the season.
Well, he's certainly going to have a tough decision to make. I mean, you've got a Peyton Ramsey who's got 2 years of experience on quarterbacking this team, but then you've got 2 young, very, very talented guys that have come in, and Michael Penix, who was injured last year, and then, of course, Jack Tuttle, who is a transfer from Utah. Man, they are loaded at the quarterback's room, and it's going to be a great problem to have, but that's going to be a very, very crucial decision for Tom Allen and that staff to make as they head towards the kickoff, which I can't believe is next month. Football season starts next month, dude, August 31st.
That's right. Lucas Oil Stadium, Ball State. Should be a lot of fun. I think we're all looking forward to it, right?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to see who the quarterback's going to be. I'm looking forward to seeing what this offense can do with these guys we've talked about. The running backs room is you got Cole Guest coming back, and of course Stevie Scott, who had a breakout season last year. Then you've got Ivory Winters, who we'll meet today. You've got Samson James, who they're freshmen. How much are they going to get to play? We got the new rule with being able to play 4 games. There's 4 games Samson James could play. There's 4 games Ivory Winters could play without burning a season of eligibility.
Yeah, and Tom Allen has talked about establishing depth on the offensive and defensive lines too. And, while those are not as, highly sought out or maybe sexy things to talk about, they're necessary for sure. You've got to kind of build that depth. And I know he's concerned about both areas of the ball, particularly the defensive line. He, and that's certainly why he's brought in some JUCO transfers and grad transfers to help out there.
What's Kevin Brockway working on right now?
Yeah, just trying to do some more summer recruiting stuff, perhaps a story on Antoine Randall, Jordan Hulls, and really just gearing up for next week for Chicago.
Yeah, next week the Big Ten football media days take place. That's Thursday and Friday. We'll be coming to you live from up there, so looking forward to that. And the season's ready to get going, man. I'm excited for football. I'm ready.
Yeah, no question. I think we all are. We're ready to go, ready to roll.
Kevin Brockway from CNHI. I appreciate you, brother, as always.
All right, thank you.
You bet. There's Kevin Brockway from CNHI joining us. Hey, make sure you tune in tomorrow as the basketball tournaments get underway. We'll be with Scott Agnes is going to talk to us from Las Vegas as the NBA Summer League continues. Scott Agnes with The Athletic is on with us each and every week. So we'll see, check in with Scott, see how things are going. And Zach Osterman from the Indianapolis Star, he'll join us from Birmingham, Alabama, as the Adidas Gauntlet gets underway, and several of the IU targets are down there playing. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for us today. We appreciate you joining us. We thank Stu Jackson from thehoosier.com for joining us, part of the Indiana Rivals Network, and also, of course, Kevin Brockway. For Jake, I'm Jim Coyle, and from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, we'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, I will see you on the radio.
Social disease.